so great for the leader of the opposition to finally get his security clearance so he can understand what kind of shenanigans are going on within his own party in terms of foreign interference.
Relevance?
Yeah,
Well, you brought it up, Mr. Perkins.
I never mentioned my leader
continuing it.
once. Never mentioned him once. You can't
continuing
make
it.
stuff up.
All right,
Oh, is that how it
okay,
works?
Yeah, you can't
Mr. Perkins.
The problem child goes off. Here in committee, Larry Brock tries to defend she is out of control. Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah. Up next is Mr. Brock for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome, Ms. Morgan, to committee. I'm going to start by following up on some loose ends based on other members' questions to you. Now, I was rather shocked in your response to one of the questions about the law firms that SDTC and the board are retaining. You said a number of law firms, and you also included Osler's in that mix. Now, Edward Vandenberg, I don't know if he is a partner of Osler's or an associate of Osler's, has acquired a notorious reputation for giving completely improper governance legal advice to the former chair of the SDTC board, Ms. Verschieren. She relied upon that advice, as did other board members, to enrich herself and other companies that she was associated with and other board members. Why on earth would SDTC and its current board, stating the obvious that you're here to restore trust within the system, that you are the overseer and you're going to ensure the prudent use of taxpayer money, why on earth would you associate yourself with that law firm when we have dozens of other leading national firms across this country? Why would you associate yourself with that? And you said quite assuredly that he is not part of giving us any legal advice. Well, how do you know that? Clearly, Mr. Vandenberg is not part of your meetings, but how do you know he is not continuing to provide advice to other associates or other partners who in turn give you advice? An obvious answer to that would be to cease all operations with Osler's. So why aren't you doing that?
Mr. Chair, SDTC has no longer has any relationship with the lawyer who provided that advice, and we have engaged an independent conflict of interest and ethics advisor for the board and for the organization from a different law firm.
Is Osler giving you legal advice, yes or no?
We engage a number of law firms.
Answer the question.
Ms.
Morgan, answer the question. Is Osler giving you legal advice, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, depending on the nature of the legal advice, SDTC engages a number of law firms, including Osler, on certain issues.
So Osler is giving you legal advice on certain issues. Now, you're not part of any of the operations at Osler, so you cannot say definitively that Mr. Vandenberg is not part of that process. I think out of abundance of caution, you should be ceasing operations with Osler's. But I'll leave it at that and I'll move on. You talked about taking appropriate action if you discover fraudulent or wrongdoing. We clearly have evidence of Ms. Verschieren enriching herself in decision-making that resulted in a finding of breaching the Conflict of Interest Act. I also heard you say that you will take steps to recover money. That decision by the Ethics Commissioner was made several months ago. You've been on the new board since June the 4th. Why haven't you taken any action?
Mr. Chair, in the past 4 months, the board has focused on taking...
Not my question, Ms. Morgan. Why have you not taken action on behalf of the Canadian taxpayer to recover the ill-gotten gains of Ms. Verschieren? Why have you not started that process? I don't care about your other priorities. I know that's understandable, okay? But you also have a mandate to recover funds. If that mandate didn't come from the minister himself, I'm listening to your responses. That mandate is part of the new governance system. Why have you not taken steps to recover money for the taxpayer?
Mr. Chair, it has taken a few months for the board to get up and running and start to put in place the processes to deliver on its
Okay,
mandate.
are you getting legal advice, ma'am? Are you getting legal advice from a law firm as to how that process should take place to recover funds, yes or no?
We have established a clear process. We have engaged advice. We have engaged independent reviewers.
Instead of speaking in generalities, Ms. Morgan, Ms. Morgan, it's my time. Instead of speaking in generalities, please let's start a refreshing approach and answer a direct question. Direct question is this: are you getting legal advice as to what process should be followed to recover money? Yes or no? And if you say yes, which law firm is giving you that advice?
Mr. Chair, we have indicated to the committee that if we find evidence of fraud or wrongdoing, the board will take action.
Again, Chair, she refuses to answer the question.
Chair.
Okay, one second. Yes, Monsieur, point of order.
Just, I would appreciate if time could be given to Ms. Morgan to complete her answer.
Happy to if she actually answered the question.
Sur cet appel au règlement.
Mr. Brock, just 1 second. Oui, Madame.
Yes.
Pour cet appel au règlement, je trouve vraiment décevant que
I think it's very disturbing to see that this witness is not answering any questions that require a yes or a no and is just playing a tape that I'm sure government officials have given her to play. It's important. We have questions. She should answer them as specifically as possible, respecting the time as well as the work that we're carrying out here. Thank you.
Very much. Yeah, oui, Monsieur Drouin. Appel au règlement encore?
Another point of order. Look, I would just like to ensure that we respect our witnesses. If we don't hear the answers, it can be a little frustrating, but, you know, we do have to hold back as parliamentarians. We need to respect the witnesses, and with due respect for my colleagues as well. I do understand the frustration and feel it, but, you know, he's asking a question, then he would like an answer, even, you know, we don't get the answer. That's not my fault.
Oh, no, all right. So I think so you can. Ms. Morgan, you can see the position I'm in. There is some frustration where there are specific questions, but the responses are general in nature. Is this something you'd like to answer or come back to us on with a specific question to Mr. Brock about? Is there, Mr. Brock? Do you want to very specific, short? I don't want any preamble.
Yes, there's no preamble.
Yes.
Are you receiving legal advice about the process regarding recovery? If the answer is yes, which firm is giving you advice?
Thank you.
Very
is this something
general.
you could either answer or come back to us with an answer on, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd be pleased to answer. Of course, we are receiving legal advice with respect to all of our next steps, including recoveries, and I would be pleased to get back to you with the name of the law firm. I just can't recall at the moment.
Thank you. We appreciate that, and we look for that answer. Ms. Khalid, the floor is yours for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Ms. Morgan for being here today. Really appreciate your testimony. I know that a couple of questions have been asked about from you about what has been the prior case to what is the current case and what is going to be the future. So can you please help us walk through the entirety of your involvement with what has happened prior to what is currently ongoing with you and what the future holds with respect to this issue?
Mr. Chair, the board of the SDTC is really focused on moving forward on the mandate that Minister Champagne has provided us. So looking at the three elements of that mandate, the first one being implementing the Auditor General's report. We have implemented 10 of the 11 recommendations of the Auditor General. As outlined, and there's one more underway, which has we've been discussing today, which is the individual review of each project for eligibility. The second element that the board has been working on is restarting funding for clean tech companies. We've engaged in a third-party review, and once these reviews have been completed, we are hoping to be able to restart funding, particularly for those companies where they've met their project milestones and they've been waiting for funding because funding has been paused. as well as for those projects where there were no eligibility issues identified. And then the third piece, Mr. Chair, is transitioning programming and staff to the NRC. This is really about people. There's so much talent at SDTC and people who are so committed to the future of the sustainable development technology sector in Canada, and working with SDTC to ensure a smooth transition of people and programs to the NRC. So that will be our focus going forward, and thus far we've established solid working relationships and good working groups between the two organizations to organize that.
Thank you very much for that. Now, I know that it sometimes feels like a kangaroo court in here where a lot of companies get put through the ringer. And this whole matter, and as disappointed as I am in how this corruption has really implicated and impacted a lot of our green tech, our clean tech sector, can you please help us understand kind of what that transition has looked like, especially with the freezing of funds of companies? How has that impacted the industry in your current role? What do you see?
Well, there's no question we have heard that companies, some companies are having difficulty because funding for their projects has been paused, and there's a lot of interest of companies to know when funding could be restarted, so, to enable them to continue and remain financially viable during this period. The SDTC funds sustainable development projects in agriculture and manufacturing, in energy and forestry. It's quite a broad scope of projects that are funded by SDTC, and a lot of very interesting companies that have a lot of potential. So, we are looking forward to being able to move forward on that part of the mandate.
And when will funding resume for a lot of these companies? I know there was a freeze put on, rightly so, because we want to make sure that when funding resumes, it is transparent and that Canadians are able to understand how Canadian dollars are being spent. So how is that going to resume?
We have the processes in place now, a renewed contribution agreement with ISED, and the project review process restarted. So we're hopeful that soon we'll be able to provide funding to those projects where the Auditor General did not identify eligibility concerns, and then to projects where project milestones have been met, and the funding has been paused.
Perhaps talk a little bit about the renewed contribution agreement and how that is impacting the industries, and how that is going to be implemented, especially with respect to conflict of interest.
There are a number of recommendations of the Auditor General that are reflected in the renewed contribution agreement, and that required, in fact, changes to the contribution agreement. So that includes enhancing oversight, including conflict of interest reporting and disclosure, quarterly reporting that demonstrates compliance within the terms of conditions of the contribution agreement, clarity on the role of ISED vis-a-vis SDTC, enhanced oversight and auditing, and also clarification of eligibility requirements, because it was noted in the Auditor General's report that in some cases there was a lack of clarity around eligibility, including, for example, the technology readiness level. So all of those changes that came out of that report have been incorporated now and will be taken into account going forward.
Thank you. That is the time. Beginning our fourth round, Mr. Brock, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I want to build again on some of the questions and your responses from previous members, and I think I want to focus in on the corruption associated with the Green Slush Fund, and surprisingly, and actually refreshing, I should use the appropriate phrase, it was refreshing to hear from my colleague, Liberal MP IQRA Khalid, my apologies, actually refer to this as corruption, because that's exactly what it is. And I'm sure, Ms. Morgan, given your level of experience with government, you're certainly familiar with the sponsorship scandal that brought down the Chrétien and Martin governments. You're familiar with that?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. And it's no small wonder, given the gravity of what we have with the Screen Slush Fund corruption scandal, that an associate deputy minister was heard on a secret tape referring to exactly this. This is a sponsorship-style level of corruption within the government, the likes that he has not seen since the sponsorship scandal. So, on the issue then of corruption, it's no small wonder that the opposition parties, collectively all the opposition parties, voted in favor of an order for more transparency. And what that entailed was essentially ordering documentation from the government, documentation from the Auditor General, documentation from the SDTC to shed more light. The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, essentially said that sunlight was the best way to promote transparency and accountability. He ran on that in 2015. The order of the House was made June the 10th, 2024. On June the 11th, the Clerk of the Court sent letters to the Clerk of the Privy Council, the CEO of SDTC, and the Auditor General of Canada to inform them of the order. It was to be received, the documents to be received by July the 10th, 2024. And no small surprise, given the level of corruption and secrecy behind this, that a great number of government departments and subsidiaries essentially redacted pages, hundreds of pages of documents pursuant to the order, which is the opposite of transparency and accountability. And of note, I note the Canada Revenue Agency, heavily redacted, the Innovation, Science and Economic Development, heavily redacted, National Research Council, heavily redacted, Justice Canada, and the Privy Council Office. Now, I want to confirm from your perspective the documentation that SDTC provided pursuant to this order was completely unredacted. Is that accurate? Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, we have provided all of the documents requested by Parliament. A very small number were redacted based on solicitor-client privilege alone.
Redacted on the basis of identity and addresses and personal information, or some other reason that you can't get into?
Mr. Chair, the only documents that were redacted by SDTC were documents that included solicitor-client privilege, which is essentially legal advice. We provided 10,000 documents. I believe around 300 of them included some redaction for
300
legal
pages.
advice. Yeah,
Okay.
legal advice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you part of that process of gathering up the documents, reviewing it, consulting with lawyers on the basis of what redactions, if any, would be made? Was that a decision made by you and the board?
The board directed staff and council to fully comply with the order.
Okay. And did you or any other member of the board actually review the documents, the some 10,000 pages of documents, prior to its release to the government?
Mr. Chair, those documents were reviewed by staff and council.
Okay.
Under the direction of the board to fully comply with the order of Parliament.
Okay, and given your mandate, your new mandate in terms of rooting out fraudulent and wrongdoing and taking the appropriate action, my spidey sense on what's transparency right now, in the House we have a privilege motion that has been ongoing for a number of days and will continue for a number of days, because it was the government itself and every member of government in the backbench who refused to vote in favor of the disclosure requests and are now opposed to the release of these documents. They're claiming for charter-protected reasons, which is just completely nonsense.
Your question, Mr. Brock, we'll wrap it up.
Yes, the question is, do you think it's an appropriate use of our time to demand accountability? Do you think Canadians deserve accountability and full access to all the documents to assist you ultimately in the process of ensuring fraud and wrongdoing is rooted out and that appropriate recovery action takes place? Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, my role is as a member of the board of SDTC, and we have complied with the order of Parliament for the production of papers.
Thank you very much, Attorney. Ms. Khalid, you have the floor, please, on the motion.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'm just reviewing the text of the motion, and I can't help but think about how many different versions of the same motion that we've been trying to get through this committee. Specifically with respect to Minister Guilbeault, I know that last month we had voted and the motion did not pass to include Minister Guilbeault. I'm not sure what he has to contribute. And, as I've been sitting here over these, I think it's been over 22 meetings that we've had on this specific issue, can't help but see how many repeated questions there are, how many it seems like your neighbor's, cousin's, friend's, dog's sitter is somehow related to what it is that we're studying here. And the fact that we are going down this path really makes me think about the government resources that we spend on this. Really makes me think about all of the extra redundancy that we're seeing on different committees, whether it's this one or an INDU or an OGO or so many others. And the Conservatives keep trying to tie this to the Prime Minister, and the fact that, over 22, 23, 24 meetings later, they still haven't been able to do so, I think is quite telling. And absolutely, we can go down this path, and I'm sure that Minister Guilbeault will come here. He'll have lots of great things to say. He'll have, I think, a good news story about how the clean tech sector is really propping up Canada's economy and how we're doing well in that sector. I think he'll have good news story to talk about how SDTC has over this decade been able to prop that sector, and how that transition is going to be good for transparency, is going to be good for accountability, and how it's going to be good for that sector. But I don't think that that's what the Conservatives really want to hear. I don't think they want to hear the good news stories at all. I think they're really in the mindset to find any way to tear Canada down, regardless of how they do it. And I think it's really disappointing in how and what they're trying to achieve here. There is no evidence. This committee is not a courtroom. We should leave it up to the people that make the decisions as to how this should happen, and leave it to their independence as to how this is going to happen. We are not in that business. We are in the business of ensuring what happens going forward. We are in the business of ensuring that there is increased transparency, that there is increased accountability, that we are doing right by our institutions and continuing to build public trust within our institutions and amongst Canadians as well. So I find that this motion is redundant. It has already been discussed and passed, and I'm surprised, Chair, that you did not rule it out of order, because it addresses the exact same issues that we have discussed here in the past over these past 23, 24 meetings that we've had now on this issue. And I'm hoping that we can move on to more important issues that this committee has on its agenda at this point in time. And I'm sure that Mr. Desjardins would agree that we do have some very important reports that we need to get to so that we can continue to do the work that Canadians expect us to do. And this is absolutely not it. Thanks, Chair.
Ms. Khalid, you have the floor, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I do understand that there are still a number of witnesses that we have yet to hear from with respect to this. I also understand that the RCMP has been very clear in that they don't want committees like this to interfere with their ongoing investigations. They don't need the butting in of the important work that they do. And quite frankly, I mean, what happens after, we hear from XYZ witnesses here in this committee? what are we going to do with that information is tainted, because I've seen how Conservatives treat witnesses at this committee. I've seen just how much of a horrible time they get put through when they come before this committee. I've seen businesses go through the ringer when Conservatives, whether it's this committee or any other committees, go through and interrogate them like they were in a courtroom. This is not a courtroom. This is a place where we make policy decisions, where we provide recommendations to the Government of Canada as to how we are going to conduct our business going forward, how we can improve the business that we conduct going forward. So having all of these witnesses on the list that are going to be invited to this committee, I'm not sure why we need to suffer motion after motion that have literally zero impact on what we're trying to achieve here. And what we're trying to achieve here, Chair, and I'll remind you and our committee members, all of us, is that we're trying to find a better process for ensuring that the clean tech sector can have the support that it needs to support Canada's economy, to grow Canada's economy, and for that to happen in a transparent and an accountable fashion, taking into account what Canadian taxpayer dollars are actually paying for. There has been wrongdoing. I think none of us on this committee disagree with that. There has been wrongdoing. But what are we going to do about it? Are we going to go down the rabbit hole? Are we going to try to, hold a kangaroo court here in this committee? Or are we actually going to find some reasonable, sustainable, concrete solutions that are going to help in fixing the problem? And I think that we can be those people that are going to fix the problem rather than going down whatever avenue, whatever court the Conservatives want us to go down. Mr. Perkins spoke about his leader and how he's so, really into this issue. Well, what's another issue, and Mr. Perkins did allude to this, is foreign interference. And it would be so great for the leader of the opposition to finally get his security clearance so he can understand what kind of shenanigans are going on within his own party in terms of foreign interference.
Relevance?
Yeah,
well, you brought it up, Mr. Perkins.
I never mentioned my leader once. Never mentioned him once. You can't make stuff up.
All right. Oh, Mr.
Is that how it
okay,
works?
Mr. Perkins, Ms. Khalid, I would gently guide you back to the motion at hand.
And that's exactly my point, Mr. Chair, is that we can throw whatever spaghetti at the wall. I would have used another term, but I know it's not parliamentary. But whatever spaghetti we can throw at the wall and see if it sticks or not. Has it cooked enough? Have we found out enough things that we can perhaps, add as sauce to the spaghetti that may or may not stick to the wall? Well, the reality of the matter is there are so many people that support us in these committee meetings. There are so many resources that go into these committee meetings. There have been phenomenal reports that hold the government to account by the Auditor General that are pending our review, that are pending our recommendations, and yet here we are, meeting after meeting after meeting, chasing after geese. And I don't think that that's appropriate, Mr. Chair. I think that we need to do better things with how we conduct ourselves. If there is an RCMP investigation, let the independent RCMP conduct their investigation. It's not like we're going anywhere. We're right here. We'll come back to it if that needs to be a point to come back to. But at this point in time, why do we continue to waste our time? Why do we continue to try to pressure this committee through these motions that are redundant, that we hear from again and again and again with the same topic again and again and again, that don't lead anywhere? They literally just don't get us to where we need to go. And so, Chair, like I would encourage my conservative colleagues to withdraw their motion and maybe come back to it once we've heard from all of the witnesses that are on the list. Maybe come back to it once we've realized that the RCMP has done whatever investigation they need to do. Because this makes no sense to me at this point in time. And I don't think that our committee should be spending any more taxpayer dollars going through this process. I don't think that our committee should be wasting any of our precious time going through this process. Thank you, Chair.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what we really should think about what we just saw in that committee video. It's so hard to get answers. These conservatives are asking the right questions. We see it all the time. These liberals get in the way. The witnesses are never prepared. They don't have the right answers. I try to keep notes, but there's no sense. Let me know in the comments what I should think. My name's Aaron, this is Canadian Looney, and this is another Wild Committee investigation video. There are so many of them under this Trudeau, NDP, Jagmeet, Liberal coalition government. It's a total farce. We need an election. That's it. There's no more to say about that. We just need an election. Hopefully we'll get one. My name's Aaron. Like, subscribe, share, get notified, all those fun things. Please leave a comment. Love the comments. Check your next video. Thank you for watching this one. Remember to get notified for the live shows. That's worth a look. Our live shows and getting involved in the chat room, it's a good experience. Come check it out. That's it. Learn about Canadian federal politics with Canadians similar to yourself. That's it. My name's Aaron, Canadian Looney. Catch you next video. Thanks for watching this one.